Alright. Here is the old pulley. As you can see, the bearings are completely shot in it. They ran out of lubrication and seized up. Nothing moves. And here's what it's supposed to look like. Probably can't see it in video, but this ring on the inside moves freely, and that's how it's supposed to be. So I'm going to show you how to put this back on, and the removal is the exact opposite. So you'll know how to remove it and put it back on when you're done. So here we go. Right down here, can we see that? Probably not. Not a great camera angle, but we have this nut here. Alright. Let's just move this for a second. We have this nut that goes right in there, and that's where the pulley sits. This is an idler pulley off a 96 Mustang GT with the 4.6. Now, we don't always have to do this, but it's recommended just to be on the safe side to put a little bit of thread lock inside the threads. Just so nothing comes undone. So snip that cap off. We'll put a tiny bit on them, make sure they're clean. And this will spread around as you put the bolt in. And it goes on like this, with the recessed side out. Just finger tighten it. Make sure you get it centered. Kind of spin it a little as you're tightening it down. And even past finger tight, you know you haven't cross-threaded or pinched anything if the bearing can still move freely past finger tight. So now that it's finger tight, you don't want to squeeze down on it super hard, but in this case it's a 13mm or 1/2 inch socket, and snug it up. Careful, because you don't want to strip this thing out. So now that it's snug, it still move freely, you know you've done something right. And then after that, what we can do is put our belt back on. A ratcheting breaker bar would help with this, but if you don't, you can use a standard 1/2 inch or 3/8 socket with an adapter. Put it right in there and pull it to the right. And if you don't have a long enough bar or enough strength or something like that, lawnmower handle, push it up, make sure everything on the belt is where it should be. As we push it up, we slide our belt on. And of course, we want to do a visual inspection all the way around, just to make sure the belt isn't off anywhere. We want to make sure it's on all the pulleys all the way, so that way if you start the car up and it's not on anything, it may fly off on you, and that could break your belt or give you other complications. But now that that's on and that looks good, this is all snugged up, next step is to pretty much replace anything you took off to begin with. I had to take off this set of coil packs so I could get room to move this. So Put you back on the tripod there. There's 3 bolts under here. One right there, one right there, and one right there. And you'll see corresponding holes down here, down there, and down there. You'll see them. It's pretty obvious where they go. The 13mm socket still applies to here, or 1/2 inch. Must be a deep well though, because you need to get around the stud in this case because the bolt didn't come off. As usual, finger tighten them all the way down until they're snug. You never want to start these with power tools or anything else like that. If you strip them out, then you're pretty much screwed. Your last hope then would be to either chase the threads or retap something else in there, but if you have to do that, you're pretty much out of luck on that. So this middle one in here is kind of hard. I have to go around with both sides on my hands and start it. But there is a slot in front of this mount that's open where you can stick the socket through and tighten it down. But it's just easiest if you get it all the way finger tight before you use the ratchet, and that way you can just go in there and snug them up instead of ratchet them down all the way that way. Snug up the top one, snug up the one on the right here, and snug up the one on the left. And then we'll check the top one again. Sometimes when you snug them up, it can tighten everything down a little bit farther, and then it appears to be loose again. So, yep, came loose a little bit. And then we'll go around one more time. Just make sure they're snug. You don't need to torque them down super hard. They'll be fine like that. And then in order to not chase coil wires, what you can do is simply write down which one went where. In my case, the coil wires are labeled 6, 3, and 5, and then the odd one out, which is the other color. But if they've been sitting there for long enough, chances are they'll want to fall naturally into their own positions again, like these ones are. So we can just plug those back in. So we got 6, 3, 5, and the odd color. So that's all good. Make sure there's no tools in the engine bay area. And we can start it up. Looks good.